So let's rock and roll and get into, following sort of that Punisher conversation, let's discuss what the next step for Marvel's Netflix, little corner is. It's been put in sort of a really precarious position in the sense that they're all getting fucking canceled. So, what do you think? What do you think the move is? I mean, there's been so much support for, bringing Daredevil back, sort of maybe moving them, Daredevil at least, to get it a fourth season. Do you think that a revival, a renewal? What do you think is going to happen with this?
The one thing that I do know about this is that I don't know how credible or accurate this information is, but I did read several sources that it was not Marvel's decision to cancel these shows. It was purely Netflix.
It was Netflix that pulled out of the contract. Yeah.
So it's definitely Marvel definitely realized that people really, really like these characters in these shows and everything. Like, they're begging them to put them in the movies. They're begging them to get more seasons. They were distraught when they got canceled. So I definitely think that if Marvel really, truly does care about these characters and sees a future with them, they will find a way to put it somewhere, because they can't put them on the Disney Plus,
right?
Because the shows are like really like adult.
They're MA, yeah.
There's a lot of blood, a lot of violence, a lot of swearing and stuff in there, so it does not fit with like kind of the more family friendly aspect that they're going for with Disney Plus. But they're also kind of screwed because they didn't get the opportunity to put them in any movies yet. And the two universe, the like Marvel shows aesthetic and then the MCU movie aesthetic,
they conflict.
They're very different. So it would be very jarring to have to put like the world of Daredevil, which is like this kind of hard R, gritty, like super violent show, into like Spider-Man or Doctor Strange that is like lighthearted and PG-13 and like super kind of like fun and campy. It wouldn't work. It would really take away, I feel. So that's what really worries me, is that I feel that's probably the main reason why we won't see a future for these characters.
Right.
I feel like Marvel really truly does care about like the Defenders and Daredevil and Luke Cage and people like that, and see a future with them. They will find a way to put them and to give them a future. Like, try finding a different channel. Like, it might be tough to get like HBO or like Showtime or something like that. Maybe like FX or AMC or just something like that to try and get it to pitch it. Then that's probably the only way they'll still be able to keep the current aesthetic and still continue on.
I think that, yeah, Marvel, I mean, with this, Netflix sort of played their hand, and Marvel doesn't really have a whole lot of options regarding where to put them. But I think you forgot one special thing, one important detail. Marvel does have I don't know if it's a contract or a deal, something with Hulu. Don't forget, The Runaways is a Marvel show that's on Hulu's platform and their streaming service.
It's true.
And so what I think that might be happening is, well, also, just a really quick side note, you have to consider, in the clause that Marvel signed with Netflix, there's a thing that states that these characters cannot be used for 2 years. So they cannot have anything new for 2 years. That's a long time, especially in the movie entertainment industry. And so my biggest fear at the current time is if there's not something that happens in the next few months, the fan base will die out. The lusting for a fourth season or moving these characters.
People won't care anymore. They'll see everything that happens in like Endgame and Far From Home,
and they'll forget
like that. And then they'll see like what's the point? Like, after all this stuff has happened, these kind of like low risk shows and like events don't really like matter anymore.
Well, also not even really because of the stakes of the show, just simply because they're out of the public eye for 2 full years.
Yeah,
I think that's really detrimental if that's the case. However, I would also like to point out something you mentioned about people wanting them to integrate them fully into the cinematic universe. I just don't see that working on really just a practical basis. I mean, look, these guys are superheroes. Yes, I'll give them that. But I would not think for a second that Daredevil, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, they would not survive in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it stands with the level and caliber of antagonists that are present at the moment.
Yeah, like what people were hoping is that like in the New York scene in Infinity War, that's when they thought that like they'd make like a brief cameo or show like something that relates to them, because it's happening in New York. That's like their home turf.
This calls into question the whole thing that you mentioned with DC, where it's like, oh, there's this world-ending event. Where are the other heroes at? Why didn't Aquaman go get Superman? Why weren't the Defenders present in that junction? That would have been a fantastic way to splice them in. I would have enjoyed that. But I'm saying in terms of a grander scope of fully integrating them to where they're present in a lot of projects, I just don't see that happening, because when you have people like Thanos, even Malekith from Thor 2: The Dark World would destroy...
beat the shit out of him.
The entire Marvel Netflix roster would put maybe a dent in Malekith, who was regarded as one of the worst villains. Now, yeah, sure, power set...
Like, bottom tier villain.
Yeah, bottom tier. Sure, you could argue the power set's not really where he's bad, but he didn't have a lot of depth. Sure, we can go back and forth all day, but the statement stands that these characters exist in a separate universe that is connected in sort of nods and Easter eggs, but that's all there is, and that's all that there will ever be. And so that is what really scares me, is that takes away the possibility of integration. That's Marvel losing another card. Netflix taking another card away. We're running out of options here with the Marvel Netflix world.
Yeah, and I feel like the only way that they would be able to, like, integrate Daredevil in is, like, with Spider-Man, because Daredevil, like, originated as, like, a character to go alongside with Spider-Man, because they're both, like, from New York. They both have very similar villains, like Kingpin and everything. So I feel like if they were gonna try anything, they would like team up Daredevil and like Spider-Man for just like a scene or something, just to show that like they actually do exist and are in this world and are affected by everything. And like I would say you could put Kingpin in there, but Kingpin is such like this hardened, like layered and super depth character that I feel like a whole lot of his like credibility as a character would kind of be taken away if he was thrown into like the world of like Spider-Man Homecoming and stuff. That's like super lighthearted and just like kind of campy and like Spider-Man stuff like that. And like that, like Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin is like one of the best villains that the MCU has in terms of like his character and like his performance and like the just sheer brutality of him. And so that just, I feel like
it doesn't fit tonally. It
wouldn't fit at all.
Exists in a separate world. And even if you bring in Daredevil for a scene or two, I want to mention once more the caliber that, you know, the MCU is at. Spider-Man, the current incarnation of Spider-Man with Tom Holland, is light years above any of the Marvel Netflix series. His suit alone can do everything. It's Batman's utility belt, the biggest plot contrivance in the world. Think about how many, you know, different web augmentations that he can do. What do you think Daredevil brings to the table if they had a scene together? It would just be, I mean, that's the thing, because here's what I want to push more. I would love to see my favorite guy, Charlie Cox, get in there. But it would really pain me to see that happen only for a fan servicey moment. I would want to have him play a role because he's so important to me, and I've seen him grow throughout these 3 seasons and have him play these pivotal roles. It would only work for me if he was, you know, playing an important role. Not important, but playing a role. If it was just for a fan service thing, I would be disappointed. I would feel
like if he just showed up to like help Spider-Man like in a fight, and it was like, peace off.
And see that, run into a pole or something. He pulls open a grate and jumps into it. He's like, "Oh, Daredevil's in this."
Back to lawyer, Bill.
Back to lawyer. But then here's the thing. Here's the problem: is if they do integrate them for even a scene, even a single scene, that brings in all the questions that you've asked before. Why weren't they present at a lot of these other junctures? Why weren't they at these events? Where were they? If they appear for one scene, then all of those questions, they become way more credible and way more logical and way more somewhat...
You can't excuse them now. Like,
exactly.
The fans realize that, like, the Netflix shows are, like, not separate, but, like, their own thing away from the MCU. So, like, you forgive them if, like, Daredevil doesn't show up in, like, the Battle of New York or something. But, like, yeah, they run into that issue where, like, if they put him in one of these movies, they're like, okay, wait, so you were here the whole time.
Right. And that's the problem. And I think that's sort of where... I think the DC situation is a much more of a... That's where those questions impacted DC a lot more because those characters do exist in the same universe. It has been shown that they exist in the same universe, you know? And so I think that those questions much more apply to DC than with Marvel because of the Marvel Netflix shows, as I've stated before, separate but equal. You know what I'm saying?
Wording there.
Racism level goes to 0. So we've gotten through that, and then I'd like to point out the Disney touch. So you've mentioned Disney Plus, the streaming service. Netflix's competition. They're introducing in 2019. I'm not a fan, but I'm going to put my thoughts aside so that we can get through this section. So the Disney touch, let's say hypothetically, Disney, they come out and they say, all right, we've heard you. We've heard what you said. We're bringing Daredevil to the Disney Plus streaming service. Now here's what I think would happen. In that hypothetical, the intangible of what if that happened, they would do the Disney touch. They would make it kid-friendly. They would take away a lot of the depth. They would take away the themes that are dealt with. I think the performances and just everything about it would drastically go down if Disney moved it to their streaming service. Simply because
it's family friendly.
It's family friendly.
Now, yeah, like a lot of like why the reason why those Netflix shows are like really good. You know, obviously with like the exception of Iron Fist and shit, because no one gives a shit about him. But with like Daredevil or Jessica Jones or the Punisher, is that like we're treated like adults.
Yeah.
When we watch it, like they're super mature. They understand the idea of like deep characterization and layered themes and like a whole bunch of like stuff going on. We're not treated like just the average movie-going Marvel fans. Like we're treated as adults. They take their time with it. They care about the characters. Not to say that the Marvel movies don't. Is that
but there's a level of complexity. There's more depth.
They have the advantage of being able to be stretched out across 13 hours. So they have a lot more room to develop these characters and to be like taken seriously and actually have like arcs to them and give them like thematic moments and stuff that really matters to them. And a lot of it is very adult-like. A lot of it deals with like violence and like assault and like death and sex and stuff like that. And like it's necessary, like because that's the world that they established, that they live in this super dark, super violent world. And because of the very nature of what Disney is, if they were to put it on that streaming service, they would have to take it away, because then families would be like, oh, let's watch this show that's a Marvel show with our family, and then they'll see like
some dude getting his head crushed on a door. Yeah. And
then kids would be traumatized and be terrified of Vincent D'Onofrio even more than they already are. He's a scary dude.
And that's a fair point. It's you would think, let's imagine that happened, then you would have Daredevil, and then right next to it you'd have The Mandalorian, which I'm assuming is going to be an extremely lighthearted take. Pedro Pascal is leading it. I mean, yeah, it has all the signs of a very light show. Sure, I'm assuming there's dark elements, but it's just, that's interesting. If you had that, I mean, it just doesn't work. It conflicts. Yeah. But that...
And, like, you would get a lot of really angry... You know for a fact that, like, the second that this comes out, like, every family with kids ages, like, 3 to 15 are going to buy it instantly so that they can, you know, mind-numb their children and leave them alone for 30 goddamn minutes and just watch, like, Trolls or something on the channel. And
just put on Inside Out continuously.
Angry parents who, like, just leave their kids to watch whatever they want, and then they start watching this super violent show and get, like, traumatized by the violence. Disney's going to get, like, complaints up their ass every day.
Right. Well,
so they really just kind of screwed with the characters, unfortunately.
And that sort of epitomizes exactly why Daredevil and all of these Marvel Netflix shows would simply not be able to exist on Disney+. Oh,
my God.
So, it just...
Did you turn into Venom?
What?
Did you just turn into Venom?
I did, for half a second. I'm Edward Brock Jr. But it's like, you just can't have Bambi, and then the next thing is Daredevil right next to it. You just can't have that.